Welcome to our Baseball Tonight ESPN.com special. We've seen a lot of shots of beaches and surfing and certainly a lot of lobby shots here at the Grand Hyatt Hotel. But, I mean, you think about San Diego, you got to think about the San Diego Zoo.
Pablo Sandoval.
Pablo's here. The panda is there and eating. He's bitter about the Jon Lester thing because he figured he's a Red Sox and Lester was going to be there. That didn't happen. Keith Law, Buster Olney, Jayson Stark, Tim Kurkjian. I'm Karl Ravech. Welcome. So, in light of what has happened here, you kind of had a few hours to kind of, regurgitate it, think about it. What do you make of the fact that Jon is now pitching for the Northsiders?
Well, I mean, this is exactly what the Cubs had in mind coming in. Now, they drew out two different paths. One was if they were able to sign Jon Lester, and one was if they weren't able to. And so now they will execute Plan A, which is to go out and upgrade and actually try to contend in 2015. And I still cannot believe that the Red Sox blew that negotiation with Lester as badly as they did.
And they told Jon Lester, you're not the only guy we're going to bring in here. We're going to fill in around you. This was part of the agreement. We all know how inquisitive Jon Lester was about what's going on here with all the teams he talked to. So he's got kind of a guarantee that there are other guys that are going to fill in, and they're going to have to fill in. They need another starting pitcher for me. James Shields would be the perfect addition, of course. Easy to say.
Like what level starting pitcher would satisfy you?
James Shields would be a perfect number 2 for them. And then you go after that with Wood and Arrieta and Hamill. It's pretty darn good.
The guy I threw out there was Brandon McCarthy. Doesn't cost them a draft pick. They're obviously the cerebral approach that he brings to pitching is going to line up with the way the front office is looking at things. McCarthy's always said, even on social media, he's very big about what catchers he's throwing to. Well, they just brought in a really good framing catcher that McCarthy has worked with before. You might be able to get him on a shorter-term deal. You just made this huge commitment to Lester. If they're loath to go 6 years on another starting pitcher, they might be able to get McCarthy for 3.
Isn't their big play going to be next year in starting pitching? Zimmerman, Price, somebody like that. That's what I see. I don't see them going out to get someone who blocks their ability to go do that.
Would they be blocked? I mean, is there enough to go around if you do that next year or you do something this year?
If you sign another short-term guy, it doesn't have to be McCarthy, but something in the Jason Hamill category, it would still give you the flexibility to go out and get one of those guys. But the other thing they could do is try to trade from their surplus of young position players to go get one of those guys now and then try to sign him to a long-term contract.
There's clearly a lot of vitriol in Boston, and it seems like, if I'm reading all the numbers correctly, that Jon Lester's signing bonus is as much as the Red Sox missed on matching the Cubs' offer. It's a $20 million signing bonus, and they were $20 million off of. How did that happen? How in the communication, with all the meetings that were going on, weren't the Red Sox sort of informed, here's the number to get to, and if not, that's troubling, and if so, why refuse it?
You can't possibly spin it as anything other than a mistake in the way it played out. And by the way, Jayson reported earlier, the signing bonus for Lester's actually $30 million. But you think about how this began, where a year ago, Jon Lester cut his own legs out from underneath him in terms of his leverage in January 23rd and said, I want to stay with the Red Sox. He brought up hometown discount. And yet, in spite of that, they offered him about 50% less of what his general market value was. Okay, they start out at $70 million, and when this finishes up, he can make with the Cubs perhaps $100 million more than that initial Red Sox offer, and even the Red Sox offer nearly doubled what the Red Sox offer was initially. They offered $135 million. That's extraordinary.
I know, and he also gets other stuff with the Cubs he could never have gotten with the Red Sox. The Red Sox don't do the full no-trade thing. He's got a full no-trade with the Cubs. Where the Red Sox going to do the vesting option for the 7th year doesn't look like it. I mean, this turns out to be an incredible deal for Jon Lester.
Last night, Buster made comparisons between a couple of the Cubs prospects who would be on the field, presumably at some point next year, to Giancarlo Stanton and Barry Larkin. Larkin's a Hall of Famer, and if Stanton continues to trend this way, he's a Hall of Famer. And Rizzo's off to a great start. So are we talking about a team of that ilk with that much talent?
I think so. It's all position players. If you look up and down their farm system, Chris Bryant should be the third base. We should be there on opening day. They're probably going to hold him down for 2 weeks, push off his free agency. Addison Russell is not far behind him among the top 3 or 4 prospects in baseball.
And he's a shortstop.
And he's a shortstop.
So there's a left side of your infield.
And that already, just mentioning those guys, already now we're looking at a surplus. Javier Baez, Arismendi Alcantara, who could move to center. Baez could move to second. Starlin Castro, an established major leaguer with a long-term contract. where does he fit in? They've
Right.
got extra pieces that they could potentially use to flip for starting pitching.
Keith, what piece would you move if you had to? Would you take Baez and say that 200 at-bats and nearly 100 strikeouts is a sign that this may not work as well as we'd like? Is that what you would do, or would you go Castro first?
I would move Castro first for two reasons. One, I think the contract makes him extremely attractive to other clubs. He's cost controlled for 6 more years. He's established at least a good baseline level of performance. But the other thing is, Baez's performance in those 200 at-bats was terrifying. This guy has a real contact issue and has shown basically no ability to make adjustments, even after 100 at-bats or so of just abject failure.
Right.
And I don't know that he's absolutely going to fail. He may make those adjustments, but what's his trade value right now? If you're the acquiring team, can you headline a package with that guy?
Right.
I don't think you can.
Now, there are a few teams that
sorry
want
to interrupt.
Yeah.
Other teams have told me that they feel like the Cubs' decision to call up Baez at the end of the year significantly cut into his trade value because he looks so bad.
There are a few big market teams that need shortstops. Can Castro go to play in New York? Can
Yes.
he go to a big market team and play?
He can go to a team that is willing to accept fringe average, slightly below average defense where you're getting a lot of bat. But there are many teams in baseball that have gone the opposite direction, that say, we just want a guy who can catch the ball. We want somebody where we're going to get 10, 15 runs added on the defensive side, and if he hits it all, it's just a bonus. Castro isn't that kind of player.
Yeah, but rare commodities are good. Rare commodities, I think, are more tradable. The other thing on Baez is, I don't think the Cubs minded that much that he struggled the way he did. They needed to send the wake-up call that this is what happens in the big leagues if you swing at every single pitch you throw.
There was a kind of an interesting takeaway from the World Series, and you can kind of go with it with regards to a guy like Baez. But that one of the keys for the Giants' success is that Sandoval and Pence hit balls out of the zone, and the Royals are so locked into not swinging at bad pitches that in order to build a really good lineup, you need one or two of those guys that will go chase a pitch, hit a bad ball, and the Royals are not a team built like that. So Baez, if he can improve, isn't he somebody that can be that guy that goes out and hits one 9 miles on a pitch like Manny used to do or somebody used to do?
Yes, his issue isn't so much selectivity in terms of balls and strikes. I think a lot of it with him is he walks up to the plate, he already knows when he's going to swing. I'm going to swing at everything I see in this at-bat. And the problem, you can get away with that in high A, double A when you've got his kind of bat speed, which is really some of the best I've ever scouted. You can't do that in the big leagues. Pitchers are just going to exploit you even within the strike zone, and he's going to have to close that off in his approach.
All right, so Cubs have more to do.
He struck out 4 times in a game, 5 times.
That's not good.
The record is 7 in a season. He did it in 2 months.
That's not good. How about other teams? The Phillies, again, I saw Ryan Sandberg earlier today talking about we have to be honest about where we're at.
Right. Now, they have not made a single deal this winter. We keep thinking we're going to see a lot of action on Cole.
They made a single deal like the last 3 years? It feels like they haven't done anything.
Well, they were buyers 3 years ago. That's another story. But Cole Hamels is a really interesting name now with Lester off the board. I still don't get the sense they've got a ton of action on him. One of the things that surprised me today was hearing that the Red Sox haven't re-engaged them on Cole Hamels at all. The Red Sox have like 15 different starting pitching options out there. I really don't think that right now Cole Hamels is one of them because of the asking price and because the no trade blocks the Red Sox.
Jason, Gibbs, run through some of those that the Red Sox are looking at.
Well, here's one I think you need to watch. Rick Porcello. The Tigers clearly have interest in Yoenis Cespedes. I mean, it'd have to be a bigger deal than 1-for-1. Keep your eye on that one. We've heard Wade Miley. That seems like a deal that could fit. Obviously, James Shields on their list. It's a long list. Jordan Zimmerman, I think, is still in play. Watch out for all of these.
How about Johnny Cueto? Going into the last year of his contract, you've got to be thinking he's looking at 20-plus
Do you
million
have to
a
think
year.
radically? Because there's no, other than Scherzer, there is no Lester. So do you have to get a little more radical if you want to get an ace on your team?
I think you do, because otherwise you're dropping down one full tier. You're talking about Shields, Santana. Those are more like mid-rotation starters instead of an ace.
I don't think Johnny Cueto's getting traded.
No.
Remember the All-Star games at Cincinnati? Very difficult year for the owner to give up.
You talked about the shortstop situation with the Dodgers real quick. Jim Salisbury does a great job covering the Phillies. Reports that Jimmy Rollins could be open to waiving his no trade to go to the Dodgers. That could make sense.
That has legs. There's no doubt that is in play right now.
Right. And the Dodgers need to do something, too, because their fan base is pretty
Stopgap at
frustrated.
shortstop before Corey Seager gets called up.
There. All right, boys and girls, we'll continue here on ESPN.com. Baseball tonight 6:30 ESPN News, 3:30 local time. Lester's gone, but plenty more to do.